You're listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who, where we discuss everything about the hit BBC series, Doctor Who. And today we're discussing the Big Finish audio story, Wink, featuring the 6th and 10th Doctors. I'm Dom Bettinelli, and joining me today is Jimmy Akin. Hey, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
Folks, be sure to do us a favor, help us out, write a review of the show, whether it's on Apple Podcasts or leave a star rating on Spotify or something along those lines. That really helps us with the algorithms and gets the show in front of more people, and also recommend the show to your friends. Help us grow this community of Doctor Who fans and reach more listeners. Another show on the StarQuest Network I'm sure you'll enjoy is The Secrets of Star Wars, which you can find wherever fine podcasts are found or at sqpn.com/Star Wars. So, Jimmy, this is Wink. Could you give us a recap of what happens in this one?
This week, the 10th Doctor is trying to avoid his upcoming regeneration, and he lands on a planet called Lucida Silvara, which is surrounded by stars. The result is that it's always blindingly bright there, except for an eclipse that occurs once a year. And the 6th Doctor showed up to watch the eclipse, but there are weeping angels on the planet, and they sent the 6th Doctor 300 years back in time where he meets the 10th Doctor. The two of them meet two local workers, Estra and Padilla, even though it should be pronounced Padilla, who are tasked with moving the 51 statues of weeping angels that surround the city for an upcoming event. It turns out that the locals don't have the sense of sight, so they can't see and quantum lock the angels. But the walls of the city are made of a reflective stone that acts like a mirror, so the angels surrounding the city have quantum locked themselves by looking at the mirrored city walls. And the locals don't realize the danger they're in as a result. They've just known about these statues have been here for 300 years, and they've never caused us any problems. The danger is real, though, because Estra and Padilla's boss, a guy named Dax, already moved one angel into the city, and then it killed him and took his voice. It also reproduced using the time energy from from moving the 6th Doctor into the past, and now that the city walls have been breached, all the people inside the city have vanished. The 6th and 10th Doctors try to help Estra and Padilla, but the eclipse ends and they wind up blind due to the excessive light, with the two workers leading them by the hand back to the 10th Doctor's TARDIS. The two doctors sacrifice themselves to the angels in order to get the workers safely into the TARDIS, and they wind up 300 years ago, where all the inhabitants of the city have been transported, only the city hasn't been built yet. Estra and Padilla pilot the TARDIS back to where the doctors are. Only the angels have used the energy from sending both doctors into the past to multiply again, and now there are 51 of them preparing to attack the huddled mass of people they sent back in time. So the doctors come up with a plan. The 10th Doctor lures Angel Dax on board the TARDIS, he's the root angel, and then opens the heart of the TARDIS and allows it to look at Angel Dax. This paralyzes Angel Dax and all of the offspring angels that reproduced from him. That gives the displaced citizens the opportunity to build the mirrored walls of the city and keep everything safe for 300 years. The end.
The origins of the Weeping Angels would be an interesting story. Like, where do these statue-like creatures come from? Because they can't be natural. So it'd be interesting to see that.
The dark times.
Yeah, right. So, your overall impression of the story, Jimmy?
I like it. I like, and I'll talk about the title, I guess, in a moment, but I like the interaction between the two doctors. You know, we have some intra-doctor sparring, which is normal when you get two doctors together. And for once, the 6th Doctor's cranky nature is, you know, appropriate to the circumstance. I like the setup with the Weeping Angels, because we're in an environment where the native people, you know, don't even know anything is weird about these statues. They just know they've been here for hundreds of years. And because of the unique nature of the environment, the angels are always quantum locked. Even though no one's looking at them, the natives cannot look at them because they don't have sight. They say they have 5 senses: smell, touch, taste, hearing, and intuit. So they use intuition to guide themselves. It's got a kind of ESP. And so they can't lock the angels, but the angels are themselves locked because what the city's walls are built out of. And they say this stone diminishes the heat and keeps the city cool in summer. And the fact it's reflective is something that the natives aren't even aware of because they can't see it. Right. So you've got the angels effectively neutralized here. And then I like that on top of that, the environment, and this makes sense for why they can't use vision, it's blindingly bright. So they're like the opposite of the people are like the opposite of cave fish. Cave fish have lost their sense of sight because it's always total darkness in a cave. These people have lost their sense of sight, presumably because it's always blindingly bright constantly. And so I like having the 2 doctors, when the eclipse ends, be disabled by that. And so they've got to be led by the hand by the workers with the intuit.
It's interesting how this, in some ways, parallels the Big Finish story, the 8th Doctor story that Father Corey and I did recently, Scherzo, where it was a blindingly white environment where the Doctor and Charlie couldn't see, and so there's taking advantage of the fact that this is an audio medium, the Big Finish is, and so really leaning into that in this story. So I did like that. Of course, one thing we didn't mention was the voices are provided by David Tennant and Colin Baker. So this is the 3rd of the Out of Time series that came out in 2022. The first one being the Tom Baker one that we talked about. And we didn't talk about the second one. I don't know who was in that one.
It's the 5th Doctor, Peter Davison.
That makes sense. David Tennant's father-in-law.
Yeah. They need to keep, and in fact, that was the one they first planned to do. Because of Time Crash and the interaction between the 2 of them and their family relationship. They thought, we got to get those 2 guys together. Yeah. And then they planned the rest of this around that, but they need to keep going. I need my 10th Doctor and 7th Doctor adventure.
Yes.
I need my 10th Doctor and 8th Doctor adventure.
Exactly. And yeah, I think those would be great. I would love to see that. They recorded this in 2020 during lockdown, so they recorded remotely. So that's, I think, if anything, if COVID had an upside, it was for Big Finish, because there was a lot of audio recordings going on remotely. It takes place, as you mentioned, before the 10th Doctor's regeneration, that time immediately before, when he's running around without a companion, trying to avoid his regeneration. So that's the time it takes place for the 10th Doctor. Doesn't really say with the 6th Doctor what his time period is. The interesting thing, so it's Colin Baker, obviously, recognizably, although he's much older now. And as I was listening, I'm like, he sounds like David Attenborough. The way he talks, I was like, I could almost picture him as like David Attenborough doing this, which is, if for folks who know, he does the BBC nature documentaries.
Yeah. Of all of the doctors who are still alive, the one that has changed the most physically and in terms of his voice is Colin Baker. Yeah. It is obvious he is not young Colin Baker anymore. Right. With the others, like the 5th Doctor, Peter Davison, and the 7th Doctor, Sylvester McCoy, the changes in their voices are not, or Paul McGann, the changes in their voices are not notable. But even Colin Baker, it is.
Even Tom Baker at 90, I mean, he was recognizably Tom Baker in the first Out of Time story. So, yeah. I mean, he's recognizably Colin Baker in this one, too, but his voice is different. So, and
I think part of that, maybe he's so much heavier now.
Yeah.
Of all of the doctors, he put on the most weight.
That's true.
And when you're carrying that extra weight, it will change the resonance of your voice.
And that brings to mind the interaction between the 2 doctors, which, as you said, whenever two doctors get together, it can be contentious. I like the fact they don't draw out. They very quickly cotton on to the fact that they're both the Doctor. And at one point, the 10, they need to come up with names for each other, because they can't just call each other the Doctor. So 10 says, starts calling Colin Baker's Doctor Curly, which is, I think, funny, because Colin Baker had that curly hair when he was the Doctor, but doesn't have hair now. So like he's bald, so it's kind of funny. And then he's like, well, what do I call you? He's like, well, some people call me Pretty Boy.
Someone once called me Pretty Boy.
Yeah.
It's like, I am not calling you that.
Was it Amy? No, Amy was after this. Must have been Donna? I don't know. Yeah, Donna called him Pretty Boy. Yeah, so there was some really funny little bits of like repartee between them, which was a lot of fun. So I like the setting. Was Lucida Silvara, I think it's called. Lucida Silvara.
Yeah.
It's a planet surrounded by 1,000 cold suns that provide heat and light with a constant ambient temperature, except, as he says, for a short, blisteringly hot summer and a near total visual whiteout the whole year, except for an annual eclipse. An eclipse which the native peoples don't even know happens because they can't see. So I thought that was an interesting set it, the place to set it.
Yeah, it's also hard to see how if you're surrounded by that many suns and they're close up enough that the whole planet is blindingly bright the whole time, it's hard to see how an eclipse could happen.
Right. Or even just how anything could grow. There's clearly plants and, animal life on this planet for the people living off of. How would anything grow in such an environment?
Well, I don't have a problem with that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, plants don't need, they might flourish.
Yeah.
Any animal life would be like cavefish. It would evolve without eyes.
True. That's true. Yeah. I guess so. I missed another nickname that the 10th Doctor has for the 6th Doctor is he calls him Joseph at one point.
Oh, because of your electric Technicolor dream monstrosity.
Yes, a reference to the musical about the Old Testament patriarch Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Yeah, because of the 6th Doctor's coat, and they sink that in. So originally, Colin Baker did not want that coat.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets commented on in lots of Big Finish. But so originally, Colin Baker actually wanted to wear a leather jacket like the 9th Doctor later would. But Big Finish has a series or has various audio plays where they've changed the coat as just to be nice to Colin Baker, who really took off. It became very popular as a Big Finish Doctor. And essentially they they keep the same pattern for the coat, but it's all blue. So it's not the rainbow of colors. It's just blue, different shades of blue, and it looks better. And at the end of this adventure, now the 10th Doctor refers to, he calls him Joseph. He refers to your electric Technicolor dream monstrosity that he's wearing. But then at the end, as they're saying goodbye, 10 says to 6, blue suits you. Give it a whirl. and after 10 is gone, 6 says, I just might. And so that's setting us up for the blue coat sequence of Big Finish stories.
Nice. And speaking of the repartee, there was a moment where 10 makes a pun about angels to the left and right, recalling the Steel of Wheels song. And
Stuck in
6
the middle
says,
with you.
Stuck in the middle with you. 6 says, oh, you're not one of those doctors, are you? Where the kind that make puns and those kinds of jokes. So very funny. I like that. So one of the tools that they use, they have on board the TARDIS to get around is something called a shadow lamp, which is sort of the opposite of what we think of as a lamp, because it, instead of casting light, it casts shade, which is an interesting sci-fi
Not
concept.
unlike some YouTubers.
There's lots of shade on YouTube. And obviously, always there's something goes wrong with it at some point, just because it has to.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you wanted to say more about the title of the story, Wink.
Yeah. So when the two doctors first meet and they realize that there are weeping angels here, 10 is starting to do an exposition dump about who the weeping angels are, and 6 gives him pushback. Now, the real reason for the exposition dump is so the audience will know who they are if they've never seen the weeping angels before, which is for anyone buying a Big Finish audio play, I don't know that you really got to explain who the Weeping Angels are. They're
Right.
probably big enough fans. It's like you don't have to explain who the Daleks are every time.
Yep.
But Six gives him pushback to add a note of realism of thank you. Yes, I'm a Time Lord. I know who the Weeping Angels are. But 10 has been saying, repeating the line from the episode where they were introduced, blink, by saying, don't even blink. And because they can move when you close your eyes. If you're not looking at them, they're not quantum locked, and they can move and attack you and send you into the past. And Six says, or you could just wink. And why do people always forget about winking? That way you have one eye open at all times. and I love that because fans thought of that. After Blink came out, fans thought about, well, you could just wink. I mean, yeah, you really got to close your eyes at some point. Just do it one at a time.
Just make sure you're getting it, keeping one open.
Yeah. And so I loved having the Sixth Doctor be the one to point that out. Unfortunately, it doesn't work too great. Look, so it doesn't work too great for them in the moment because a Weeping Angel sneaks up from behind.
Yes.
And Six is like, yeah, well, you got to be looking in the right direction to begin with.
Right.
So it's not a foolproof thing. But what they should have done, given that they've got the title Wink, which is a great title, they should have made Winkin essential to the solution.
Yeah.
And that would have been real. That would have taken the story to the next level.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I did like when they first go into the TARDIS, the 10th Doctor's TARDIS, and we get the inevitable. You like what I've done with the place? A bit grubby, isn't it? I was aiming for atmospheric. Well, I rather think you missed.
Yeah.
I love that. And then later on, when the Six takes the two local women into his TARDIS, oh, this is very different. Well, some of us like the classics or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Was he said? So I thought that was nice. Yeah, I mean that the 10th Doctor's TARDIS was a bit grubby. I have to say I do prefer other TARDISes.
The 10th Doctor's TARDIS.
Yes, sorry, the 10th Doctor's TARDIS. Yeah,
I'm not a fan of I prefer the classics.
Yeah.
Of all the New Who TARDISes, the best is Ncuti Gatwa's.
Yeah, so just say the 15th. Yeah. Although I did like the 12th Doctors a bit too, with the bookcases up and that sort of thing. So you mentioned that the people of Lucida Silvara are blind. They don't even know what sight is. And that's the interesting thing. They like, and then later on when the doctors are blinded by the light, the one explains to the other, one of the women explains to the other, they're just too reliant on their sense of sight. Like they don't use their other senses enough. So they really, when they lose their sight, they're really at a disadvantage, which is a really interesting perspective. You sometimes hear people say when someone goes blind, their other senses are enhanced. It's not that they're enhanced. It's that they just rely on them more.
Yeah. Yeah, you're forced to use them more. One thing that I thought would be interesting that they didn't do in this is explain. They have the doctors kind of explain what sight is to the women, to the workers, and they say so that's what we mean when we say things like see and so forth. But they don't really explain it in a practical way. I thought about this because I knew blind people, and I thought about ways to explain what sight is and what colors are and things like that in a way that a blind person could understand based on their own experience of the world. Someone who's born blind, because if you're born sighted and go blind, you know what sight is. But for someone who was born blind, I realized I could explain it in terms of touch, because essentially what you do when you are looking at the contents of a room is you're receiving information about the surface of every object in the room all at once that is coming to your eyes. And it's basically like running your hands over the near side surface of every object in the room all at once.
Mm.
And then colors, which are patches on the surface of objects, are basically like textures. So if you're running your hand over something and it has a rough texture or a smooth texture or a corrugated texture, those are equivalents to what sighted people see as colors, which are essentially which essentially are textures that reflect different frequencies of light.
Yes.
So I think there are ways to use the senses that a conventionally blind from birth person has to explain what sight would be like to them. It's
Mm.
basically like touching the nearsighted surface, because most objects are not transparent. You only see the near side. Touching the near side surface of every object in a space all at once and sensing their textures.
That's good. Yeah, I was wondering how you would do colors, but yeah, colors are just like a different kind of texture that you can't feel.
Yeah.
So interesting. Well, and then they really dive into the aspects of how a society like this would function, because they go to an art gallery, and of course you can't see art in there. So their art gallery is basically a soundscape gallery, and it's all these. When they first go in, the two doctors are overwhelmed with this cacophony of noise. And they explain, well, you don't listen to it all at once. You listen to each one individually. And just like you don't look at all the art in a gallery at once, you look at each painting individually. And when they do that, then it's sort of, they audibly in the production of the story, they filter out everything except for the one beach sound, I think, of the ocean sounds or something like that.
And that was very creative. I liked how they did that. That was nice. That was a good scene.
And then another audio thing was, when they refer to Estra and Padilla refer to Six's questionable clothing, and he says, "What do you mean questionable clothing? You can't see what I'm wearing." And 10 says they can probably hear it because it's so loud,
or intuit it at least. Yeah.
Yes, and that's what it is. So when they go escape the city, this was a very difficult part for an audio story to do, which is the last part of the story.
Yeah.
Because there's so much going on. So they're in the city, everyone's gone, Dax is dead, the Weeping Angel is there with his voice, and they have to escape as the cherubs. So we remember the cherubs from the from one of the later it was the Amy and Rory one where they got
Angels
left behind
Take
in New York.
Manhattan.
Angels Take Manhattan. Thank you. So the cherubs, which have been newly born, are there and kind of chasing them. And so they're escaping out a window because Dax wants to send the two doctors now back in time again and harvest all of that temporal energy from all of those double regeneration energies that he can get back,
including the incarnations between 6 and 10.
Yes, exactly. That's right. And what was it? When they're talking about how the doctors can keep coming back because they're Time Lords. They're like it's Time Lords like temporal whack-a-mole, which I thought was when you keep popping up. I thought that was a nice imagery. So they escape out the window and they get back to the 10th Doctor's TARDIS. And I thought and it was interesting there too when Estra and Padilla go inside. They thought it sounded horrible inside because, of course, one of them intuits that it's the wrong shape inside. It's too big, but it also sounds bad to them. Everything about it, the sound of the time rotor and all that sort of stuff sounds bad. So I really liked having that extra bit of the sound. That was really good.
And I did like how they sense that the geometry is all wrong on the inside of the TARDIS.
Yeah. We do get a new TARDIS ability, which is TARDIS transparent mode or window mode. So they're able to make the outside of the TARDIS transparent so they can see out, which frankly, I would love to see that in live action. That would be it would be a kind of tricky special effect to pull off, but it would be kind of cool if they could do it. I wish they would.
All you got to do is set the center console in the middle of wherever you want the TARDIS to be, and don't put the rest of the set around it.
I suppose you could do that. I was thinking like you could even just like have the actual set sort of transparently overlaid over whatever like, so you could see a vague outline of it. But I think it would contribute to stories. That's for sure. So what they set what they end up doing is setting a paradox in motion, which is everybody from the future, from the city in the future, has been sent back in time with the weeping angels, who they quantum lock to the city walls, and then these people become their own ancestors.
So it's a bootstrap paradox. Their whole civilization is a bootstrap paradox.
Right. So because they're not a colony. That was the thing I was thinking, is like, are they humans that came here and evolved away from the sight, the ability to see? But no, they're something.
They're bootstrap paradoxes. That's all there is to it.
You can't logic your way through a bootstrap paradox. You just can't, which is the mind bender. So, but I am my own grandpa, as the song goes. And so, yeah, it's kind of wild. So the angels that are there and are also bootstrap paradox. Like, they exist only there.
Yes, they all split off from Angel Dax in the future, and they end up 300 years in the past, and they continue up to 300 years in the future, and then we don't really know what happens to them.
Well, they'll come back, don't they?
No,
the new ones come back. Yeah.
So I guess they're still there.
Yeah.
They're not a bootstrap paradox, but they do have their origin in the future.
Right. Okay. So that's see, that I told you, it was a little confusing.
No, it is. I'm not. At one point, towards the climax, the 10th Doctor tells the 6th Doctor to get Esther and Padilla into his TARDIS. And I'm not sure what the purpose of that was.
Yeah.
I'm not. You would expect that in a play like this, where you have two doctors meeting each other, that both the 10th Doctor and the 6th Doctor would make important contributions to the resolution. But to me, it looks like the 10th Doctor does everything. I mean, maybe they had the 6th Doctor do something important, but if so, it went by so fast I didn't catch it, and I didn't stop to re-listen to it.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, again, it was a little bit very fast. So they do something that saves the 10th Doctor at one point, I think. I'm pretty sure, where they grab him, but I forget exactly what it was. There's also a moment with the Sonic where the women refer to, because they don't have sight but they have sound. They refer to the Sonic wand, and they both say screwdriver, not a wand, which is another thing, a fan thing.
Pounded on the fourth wall because it's effectively a magic wand.
Yes, yeah. So it was the gaze of the heart of the TARDIS that stopped them, as you said, gave them temporal heartburn. So they all just kind of got gummed up, all the angels.
Yeah, and this is a, I enjoy this story for the two doctors, and for the concept of wink, even though they don't exploit it. But this is a classic resolution that I hate. The critical failure point, where you kill the one vampire and all the other vampires die. And in this one, you let the heart of the TARDIS look at the root angel, and all of that angel's offspring gets paralyzed too, for long enough to build the city walls. Right.
Which, to build city walls, is gotta take some time.
Gonna take some time, yeah.
Yeah. There was a bit Deus Ex Machina a little bit there.
Yeah.
We do get a line, a couple good lines at the end, when the 10 is kind of repeating the resolution, kind of info dumping. This is what happened, sort of, and he stops to 6. What? And 6 says, "What are you afraid will happen if you stop to pause for breath?" Because the way he talks, in a torrent of words. So I thought that was good.
There is a nice bit where, as he's describing the plan to let the heart of the TARDIS look at Angel Dax, Six says, "Oh, it's like what could go wrong with that plan?" And because Six understands how dangerous that procedure is, because it's his TARDIS too,
Mm-hmm.
and 10 then admits, "Yeah, the last time I did this, we regenerated."
Right.
Reference to the Ninth Doctor's Bad Wolf with Rose Tyler regeneration.
Yes, yes. And then when they talk about, like, when they're talking about the closed temporal loop, is no wonder our memories turn to mush as soon as we leave. In other words, explaining why they won't remember this encounter. They do say at least everyone gets to live except Dax, because they that's not what they said. They say everyone gets to live in this one at least, and I'm like, well, Dax is dead.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't get to live. So, but we'll I guess we're skipping over that part. Any other thoughts on this one, Jimmy?
No, I thought it's an enjoyable outing. I love multi-doctor stories. I mean, I wouldn't want every story to be a multi-doctor story, but I like seeing them play off of each other. I also realized something else recently. People criticized fans of Jodie Whittaker, sorry, of Jodie Whittaker's 13th Doctor, who were critical of her and her, that whole Chris Chibnall era. And I realized, and they would say, "Oh, this is prejudice, this is misogyny and stuff like that." And I realized it's not. I mean, I always knew it wasn't, but I realized it's not in my case, because who do I listen to the most Big Finish of? River Song and Missy. Anytime there is a new River Song or Missy set, I get it immediately. And I'm just waiting for the Fugitive Doctor set to come out. I mean, I bought that as soon as it became available. And so I have no problem with female characters from Doctor Who. I just want them to be good female characters like River and Missy and the Fugitive Doctor.
Right. In fact, I was going to say, who was our favorite Doctor from the Chris Chibnall era? The Fugitive Doctor.
Yeah.
She was great. I wanted more of her. And by coincidence, or not so much coincidence, our next episode, as I'll be telling you in a bit, is a Missy story. So we'll be getting more Missy. But yeah, it's not that we dislike, or it's not even that I dislike Jodie Whittaker. I just didn't like the stories. I didn't like what was written. So
yeah.
So anyway, I also enjoy the multi-doctors. I especially enjoy it when it's done by the original actors. We've heard a few where they weren't the originals and there was other actors doing the voices, and that's okay, but you can tell, and you have to suspend a lot of disbelief in those ones. I really enjoy these outings where it's the actors doing their characters, and so a lot of fun.
And of all the new era Doctor Who, it's really been David Tennant who's made that possible, because the classic Doctors were all willing to reprise their roles, at least the surviving ones. But in the new era, David Tennant has been the standout, and recently we added Christopher Eccleston.
Yeah,
in fact, there's a Christopher Eccleston and River Song set that I just got and was listening to a couple months ago, but we haven't had like Matt Smith and Peter Capaldi and Jodie Whittaker, and of course Ncuti Gatwa's still on the air.
Yeah, I would like a Capaldi and a Matt Smith, but Capaldi would be fun. I think he would translate to audio very well. I think so. That would be fun. All right, so that does it for this time. We'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Doctor Who, including Janine M., Michael C., Chris M., Luis M., and Matthew G. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Doctor Who and all the shows at StarQuest. And you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. This StarQuest show is also brought to you by Exodus 90 and the Exodus 90 app, a daily companion to help you grow closer to God and to become the man you want to be. This summer, join the Enthronement to the Sacred Heart, the Exodus 90 Summer Book Club, and St. Michael's Lent beginning August 15th and leading up to the Feast of St. Michael the Archangel on September 29th. Go to exodus90.com/SQPN for a 14-day free trial to the Exodus 90 app and to learn more about St. Michael's Lent. That's exodus90.com/SQPN to join us for St. Michael's Lent starting August 15th. We'd like to thank Zyman Yannick, who edited this episode for us. And so that's it from us this time. What did you think of Wink? You can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com or the Secrets of Doctor Who Facebook page. Send an email to drwho@sqpn.com. Visit the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/discord. Or watch us on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/StarQuestMedia and leave a comment there while you also subscribe and hit the bell to make sure you get notifications. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the Missy Big Finish story called The Belly of the Beast. Until then, Jimmy Akin, thank you for joining me and sharing the Secrets of Doctor Who.
Thanks, Tom.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Doctor Who on StarQuest, and remember, angel to the left of us, angel to the right, here I am, stuck in the middle with you.